Alright, we are reviewing really quickly for our test. I'm going to go over a few of these, maybe not all of them. This says to solve. You know you will have problems exactly like this on your test. This says to solve. I see subtraction. If I'm solving, I know I'm using inverse operations. So I'm going to add 3 on both sides, bring down my x. That gives me x equals 15. If you see subtraction, use addition to get rid of it. If you see addition, use subtraction to get rid of it. That's subtraction. I'm using inverse operations. This says to use words to write each algebraic expression in 2 different ways. So I see 2 operations, multiplication and addition. Okay? One way I could write this is the sum, meaning addition, the sum of 3 times a number, an unknown number, that's what that variable, the sum of 3 times a number and 7. That's one way I could write it. It says to use it in 2 ways. On that test, it's going to ask you for 2 ways. If you only write 1, I am not counting it right. You need to write 2 different ways of simplifying that, or writing that expression. So the sum of 3 times a number and 7, that's one. You could also write the product of a number and 3. So that's that 3m, the product of a number and 3, and then add plus 7. So I just chose 2 different ways to represent this algebraic expression. 2 different ways to represent this algebraic expression. Make sure if it says to use 2 ways, you use 2 ways. The next one, first thing I see is minus a negative. As soon as I see minus a negative, I know I'm changing that to plus a positive. On your test tomorrow, when you see minus a negative, you better change it to plus a positive. I keep saying tomorrow, but that's Monday for y'all. Your test is Monday. Then I'm going to go saying, if I change this to plus a positive, this has now become a positive. It's not a negative anymore. So where I go, same signs add and keep, different signs subtract. These signs are different, so I've got to subtract. 4 minus 3 is 1. Take the sign of the higher number. So this is negative 1y plus 5y. I'm just combining like terms. Again, I go same signs add and keep, different signs subtract. These signs are different, so I subtract. 5 minus 1 is 4y. Take the sign of the higher number. 5 is higher, so my final answer is 4y. As soon as you see minus a negative, please change it to plus a positive. Again, there I was just combining like terms. Here I'm just combining like terms. I'm going to underline anything that is like terms with this. Anything that has n to the third. Those are like terms. I'm going to put a box around anything else. Remember, if it's like terms if it has the same variables raised to the same power. This has the same variables raised to the same power, so I know they are like terms. So 5n cubed plus 2n cubed gives me 7n cubed plus 4nx squared plus, there's an understood 1 right here. If you don't see a coefficient, the understood coefficient is 1. 4nx squared plus 1nx squared gives me 5nx squared. So 7n cubed plus 5nx squared. I cannot combine those because they are not like terms. They do not have the same variables raised to the same power. Same thing here. I'm only combining that which is alike, that which has the same variables raised to the same powers. This has x squared n cubed, or excuse me, x squared y to the third. This has y to the third x squared. The order doesn't matter, but it has to be the same variables raised to the same power. Those 2 are like terms, xy and negative 5yx. Make sure you include the sign in front of these. So this is 2x squared y cubed minus 8y cubed x squared. Even though the order is flipped, they are still like terms because they have the same variables raised to the same power. So I'm just combining the coefficients. 2 minus 8. 2 minus 8. Change subtraction addition. Sign of the second term. 2 minus 8 gives me negative 6x squared y cubed. Alright, and then I've got 1xy minus 5xy. I can go over here to the side. 1 minus 5. Subtraction to addition. Sign of the second term. 1 minus 5 gives me negative 4xy. I just like to write it in alphabetical order. Do not change the do not change the variables. Keep those the same. All you're doing is combining the coefficients. This one, oh my goodness. Y'all on this test, I've seen y'all do this so many times. The first thing y'all want to do is add 3 and 5. You cannot do that. You have to follow your order of operations. G, E, M, A. Grouping symbols, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. So bring down the 3 plus 5 times. I'm going inside my grouping symbols first. 9 minus 3 is 6 squared minus 6. 3 plus 5. I continue to bring that down because I've got to work everything inside grouping symbols first. I do not add this 3 plus 5 until I've done everything inside my grouping symbols. So, 6 squared is 36 minus 6. Again, I'm going to continue to bring down this 3 plus 5 until I've done everything in my grouping symbols. 36 minus 6 gives me 30. I've got 3 plus. Again, I'm still not adding 3 plus 5. I've got to multiply before I add. Grouping symbols, exponents, multiplication, division. I've done everything inside grouping symbols first. All of this was inside grouping symbols. I did my exponents inside grouping symbols. I subtracted inside grouping symbols. So I've done grouping symbols. I've done exponents. Now I'm multiplying. 5 times 30 gives me 150. So 3 plus 150, which gives me 153. 153. Next one, a softball player got a hit 9 out of the last 12 at-bats. What is the experimental probability that should say next at-bat. Next at-bat will be a hit. So 9 out of the last 12 have been hits. All I've got to do is turn that into a decimal to the thousandths. That's how you're going to have to write it on your test, as a decimal to the thousandth. So 9 out of 12. I could divide 12 into 9 if I wanted to, or I could simplify this to 3/4. Divided by 3, divided by 3. I could divide the denominator into the numerator, or I could simplify this to 3/4, which I know equals 0 and 75/100ths, but it says to write it on the thousandths. On your test, if you write it to the hundredths place, it will not be counted as correct. So to add it to, or to write it to the thousandths, you need to add a 0. 0 and 750 thousandths. If it says write it to the thousandths, you better write it to the thousandths. This says evaluate each expression, so all I've got to do in order to evaluate that is to plug in or substitute. Everywhere I see an A, I replace it with -4. Everywhere I see a B, I replace it with 2. Everywhere I see an A, -4, 2, -2. All I'm doing is I'm plugging in these values. I plugged in -4 for A, plugged in 2 for B. And then if those values are written right next to each other, I know that means multiplication. So I'm multiplying. I've got multiplication and addition. So let's multiply first. -4 times 8 is -8 plus. -4 times 2 is -8 times -2. I still have multiplication and addition. I've got to multiply first. Bring down the -8. Negative times a negative gives me a positive 16. Same signs add and keep, different signs subtract. That should give me an 8. I plugged in, then I evaluated. Here, number 9, it's the same sort of thing as number 6. Grouping symbols, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. I do not add this 4 and this 6. I bring down that 4 plus 6. I work inside my grouping symbols. 9 minus 2 is 7 squared plus 6. I've got 4 plus 6. I bring that down. I'm bringing down every single step. Bringing down every single step. 7 squared is 49 plus 6. I'm bringing down 4 plus 6. I'm not adding this 4 plus 6 until I've done everything inside grouping symbols. I've done my exponents inside grouping symbols. I've now done I'm about to do my addition inside grouping symbols. This is 55. Now I've got addition and multiplication. I do multiplication first. 55 times 6, 30. Carry the 3. 330. So I've got 4 plus 330. That gives me 334. I do not add that 4 until the very end because everything else is inside grouping symbols and I've got to multiply before I add. Grouping symbols, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. I'm telling you, on this test, y'all are going to want to add that 4 plus 6 or whatever the numbers are. Do not do it. Graph -3, 4. Remember the first thing when you're graphing. The first thing you start off with is your x value. Then you graph your y value. Graph the x coordinate first. If it's negative, go to the left. So go to the left. 1, 2, 3. Then this is a negative, so I went left. 1, 2, 3. I didn't put a point, I just put my pencil. So I went left 3, now I need to go down. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the point. Negative 3, 4. Or excuse me, negative 3, negative 4. Remember, if it's negative, you go left for your x-coordinate. If it's positive, you go right. If it's negative, you go down for your y-coordinate. If it's positive, you go up. Always start with your x-coordinate, then go to your y-coordinate. So graph the ordered pair 2, 2. I just go right 2, and then up 2. 2, 2. Right 2, up 2, and then I label my points. Last one. There are 2 blue, 5 red, and 8 yellow marbles in the bag. What is the probability of randomly choosing a yellow marble? So I've just got to put the number of yellow over the total. Okay? So there are 8 yellow over a total of, to find the total, I just add them up. 2 plus 7 plus 8 gives me 15. So 8/15. You could also turn that into a decimal, but you do not have to. That is all.